Good afternoon, strategy gamers. Welcome back to episode 3 of our Let's Play of War in the East 2. This is the Stalingrad to Berlin campaign, and we are just about to start turn 2 as the Soviet Union. It's 1942, November 26, and in turn 1, we had quite a bit of action going on. We also closed out the episode by looking at the new events that occurred and kind of our turn summary. So we're not going to spend too much time on those two topics. To real quick do a catch-up of what happened during the Germans' operational turns, is this northern pocket here by Leningrad was pretty much all quiet, not too much going on there. Here in this little pocket that the Germans had found themselves in, they started to retreat. And they actually did try to put pressure on some of our units here, and they did force a battle. We suffered horrible air-ground support losses, and they were due to the fact that it seems like there was air superiority of the Germans, as we lost almost all of those planes to air-to-air combat, so those were not operational losses. Now, the positive that can be taken from that, though, is that when we look at the Germans' losses, we significantly lowered down their number of armored units that can support them. So they lost 5 Stug 3s, 6 Panzerjäger 2s, and 7 Marder 2s, which is pretty significant. And for infantrymen losses 472 to 800, guns 20 to 7. I'll take that. It was a horrible defeat in the air, but we did stop their advance. Looking back out here, you can see that they're now actually starting to retreat from this pocket. And we see down here, we had, I'm going to close the turn summary actually. We had taken some units and we'd pushed past these swamp tiles to try to cut off this supply line of this rail line going north-south. We ended up finding the German 8th Panzer Division sitting here in Lokna. Unfortunately, they have now responded to that little endeavor where we have pushed through, and they've now started to try to encircle that a little. The positive news that I'm taking from this is that they withdrew forces here from the north, and if we look at the defensive value of what they have down here, it looks like they've started to reposition as well. So most of these units have then weakened other parts of their front. And again, I'm not too worried about them making a big push because this terrain is quite awful, and I think we could catch them out and flank them pretty easily if we had to. But this is going to be interesting in our ground turn phase. Over here, we had made an attempt to push through to, again, one of our 3 strategic objectives, right, was to cut off the supply lines to this little salient that the Germans found themselves in. And we were not as successful as we probably would have liked. And that turned out to be okay because we now see that they are completely retreating, in full retreat from there. So I don't know that we're going to be able to break through in time to fully cut them off. But as you can see here, our front line is really rather unopposed. So I think we're going to have some happy hunting as we try to move in a little and try to collapse this. We won't be able to cut them off, but we might be able to pick off a few stragglers because you can see that they have left a couple of units. And this really is quite clever of them. They've left units in kind of the key crossroads of where we would ideally, under normal circumstances, we would want to use these rail lines and the supply that will come from them as we push further south. Continuing on down the map again, you can see they've really repositioned all of their forces. There's now this gap in their hole here and here that was not previously. And then we get to the interesting part, which is Stalingrad. So if you remember from the last episode, we successfully encircled Stalingrad, and we now find ourselves with a bit of a perimeter built, I was very worried because, for example, this unit was completely empty of supplies. They did not even have any fuel by the time we had ended our last turn. But we can actually see that they're in a pretty decent supply state. We only have one unit here within our defensive line that has any supply issues, but they're not terribly off right now. And it appears we have caught a number of their forces in this pocket. So again, I think this is going to go very well to plan, and we should have a lot of fun as we try to tighten the grip of that, because now the next step is we want to create a perimeter around Stalingrad that is as small as possible, so then we can take more of these forces to begin building up a defense of this line, and then we're not being attacked from both sides. Right? So the last thing we want is pressure from these units and pressure from these units collapsing down on this defensive perimeter we're trying to build out. So as soon as we can tighten the size of this, that means there'll be less pressure overall on our front line. There's a little bit of movement out here. They started retreat units they had here. They've brought some up to the east of our flank of the Stalingrad front, so we'll need to handle that situation. And then when we look down here, getting close to the Caucasus regions, we see that they've done pretty much a complete withdrawal from where the front line was. So we'll start to try to take some of that territory, and I think this is going to help logistically as there's some key crossroads and rail lines sitting there. In some areas they have pulled back here, but not quite as much. So Krasnodar still looks like we'll have to fight through to get up there. But it makes sense because the last thing they would want is for us to push due north to Rostov and cut off any forces they have. So with that, I think we can begin considering our air phase. And really, the first thing we got to check here, and I didn't do a good job of this in the first episode, is what is the situation with the weather, right? So we see here that we actually have, across pretty much our entire theater of operations, it's snowing. And snowfall and plains, especially in this era, just do not mix that well. The air conditions are not good for us. So I think that we're not going to do any specific ground attack air directives. We will probably allow the AI to establish recon or ground support as needed, but I don't think they'll even trigger any recon. And we'll probably keep ground support turned off for most offenses unless we absolutely need it. And I don't know how offensive we're going to push other than just moving into areas of opportunity, because when we look at the weather on the ground, and remember the game simulates two different weather systems, one on the ground condition and one in the air condition. In the ground, it is snowing again across the entire map, which really makes it difficult for us in terms of being the attacker. And if we were to look at the roads, again, we see that we have a lot of difficulty with a lot of poor roads. Some average, but pretty much none that are good to speak of. So considering that, we're going to let the AI build out all the air directives. The other thing that I want to touch on before we actually end our air planning turn is, if you remember from episode 2, the events that we had at the beginning of the turn, we actually had an issue where we lost some, I believe they're administrative points in the game, but kind of some strategic benefit to us, and I think a victory point for not having enough support in our theater boxes. Specifically, I believe is the northern theater box. And I just wanted to remind everyone that, while we've been dealing mostly with the operational map here of the Eastern Front of from Leningrad down to the Caucasus, the game actually does simulate other areas of World War II in the background, right? Because they try to simulate, when it becomes a two-front war, for example, that puts a lot of incremental pressure on the Germans to balance fighting two fronts, both in France and east in the Russian border. So these theater boxes were created to try to simulate the effect of that. And as the player, what you have to do is you have to manage your resources between those theater boxes. So for the Soviet Union, we have our northern front, which is up here, kind of by Norway, and it's supposed to simulate a lot of the Finland fighting and such. And then we also have the Trans-Caucasus theater box, which really is just kind of the area of operation south of the Caucasus Mountains there. Then we have our Far East theater box, which represents the threat that Japan and their forces in Manchuria posed to the Soviet Union during World War II. And this is one of the larger theater boxes. Right now there's currently almost 600,000 men that are stationed in the Far East for the Soviet Union. And then we have our Soviet reserves. And this is kind of mechanically treated like a theater box, but again, these are just reserve units that are sitting in reserve for the military command to leverage. So I'm not certain if this is the min-max solution to this. As I have mentioned throughout the series, we're learning and going through this together, but I think what we're going to try to do is take some of our reserve units that we do have and redistribute them to the theater boxes where we are not providing sufficient support for the war effort in those theater boxes. Because at the moment, I don't really see anything on our front lines where we go, hey, we have to call up reservists here to plug a hole or to build up for a large offensive. So we're going to go ahead and do that. And we'll start with the northern front. And right here it shows you, for ground units and for air units and naval, what percent of the kind of requirement is what the game calculates of forces have you delivered. So we're at 88% support for ground units, and there's a bunch of multipliers in here, right, where sending engineers may give a different bonus percent and such like this to get up to that total number. And same thing for air, where we're only at 90% right now. And then naval, this is mostly through air support. So when we look at ground, what we can actually do is we can see, okay, well, here are the headquarters that exist in the northern front, the armored units, the motorized infantry, artillery, etc., etc., etc. Actually, even scrolling much further down here, right, you have security units, fortified. So it is just as detailed as any other part of the game. And you can click on these, and these are treated as on-map units, where if we needed to, we could take this unit here, and we can actually transfer it over to our theater box. But I think right now it's currently restricted. So same thing with air. We can go through and see the different air operational groups that are currently in the northern front. But the fact of the matter is we're not providing the support that we should be to the northern front. So right now we're at 88 and 90% for ground and air. And what we're going to do to our reserve box is we're going to go through and we're actually going to assign units to the northern front to try to build that up. And this is a little bit of trial and error because I don't know the exact math that sits behind that calculation. So we're going to send over kind of a spot check of how many units and see what does that increase the value by. And I've gone through already and kind of reviewed a lot of these units, and the rifle divisions we currently have in here are all pretty equal in terms of their current strength, current morale, etc. They're actually all in pretty good condition. So we're going to go through, and I think we're just going to assign 4 rifle divisions to the northern front. And to do that, we right-clicked northern front, transfer, yes. And then it says that this transfers to the northern front. It's no longer here. Now we're going to do 411th, repeat that exercise, and that is now transferred. Do this 2 more times. And those have now transferred. Oh, sorry about that, guys. So that's what we've moved over to the northern front for ground units. Now for air, we're going to go through, and I think we're going to send them these level bombers. We're going to send them 2 of these. And then I want to send them a total of 3 tactical bomber groups. We'll send them these IL-2s. Actually, no, wait a minute. I'm sorry, looking at this here. I didn't notice this earlier. We're going to send them just where we have them IL-2s, not the IL-2Ms. So we're going to do 1 more, I think. And then we're going to send them 1 MiG-3 right here. So sent those up to the northern front. Okay. Now let's take a look at the Transcaucasus theater box and see where we're at. Here we're actually above kind of the commitment that we made. And by the way, if you go above, that has its own benefits too, because just as you can get some negative penalties for being below the threshold, if you really do commit incremental forces to go above that level, events will trigger, and there is some randomness to it, I believe, but events will trigger that will then give you benefits, such as perhaps additional victory points because you've kind of beaten the enemy in another theater of the war, or other benefits to planning points and such. So ground units were at 96. What we're going to do is we're just going to transfer 2 rifle divisions to the Transcaucasus and see how much that raises our number when we get to next turn. So we'll move that there. And then we'll do 1 more. Good. And then lastly, the Far East. Here we're at 97 and 96. So again, we're going to do something similar, except because the total pool, right, 97% of almost 600,000 men, that's going to be more than the 250,000 men that the Transcaucasus has. So we're going to send the Far East 4 rifle divisions, and we'll do approximately 4 air groups as well. And we'll see where that gets us. Go here to the Far East. We'll do 1 more. And then for air units, we'll do 2 of these IL-2s. And then I think we'll do 2 LA-5s for these fighter bombers. All right. So that has been our quick little intro to theater boxes and their involvement. As we learn more about all of this together, as I do further research, as you guys provide hints and tips to me in the comments section, we will keep revisiting that every turn. And like I said at the very beginning of the Let's Plays, what you'll see is that as we go through this campaign, we will slowly introduce new features, new mechanics, again, to try to make sure that we're not overwhelming anything. Like I said at the beginning, if we somehow manage to, in the 136 turns of the scenario, actually make it to Berlin and achieve victory, I think that'll be a huge success for both of us. I just want to make sure we make a good showing of it and we get to explore all the different features that this game has to offer. And as I said, we're not going to do any manual intervention of any of the air armies like we did last time. So if you recall, what we did is we actually went through different air armies and gave them ground attack targets, right, using that icon, and then actually selecting a hex to do a target, and then we built out all the details, but we're not going to be doing that this turn, so we're going to close that. Going to make sure we're doing auto manage. I press that repeatedly just because I always forget if I have done so, yes or no. So we'll end our air turn, execute the air directives, and then that's going to go through and simulate for just a bit any sorties that do end up flying. I don't think it'll be many due to the weather, though. Listen to me. There goes 153 sorties. My goodness. Looks like we've had 20 losses so far. I heard some recon going on, so maybe that was in some of the fringe areas where the weather wasn't quite as bad because, well, it was almost the entirety of the front. There were a few pockets where maybe they could have gotten by. Now more than halfway done simulating, so perhaps that was all that we're going to see. It's as if it hears me say these things and then it decides to add in a few more sorties. It's magical like that. And almost there. %, 99. Okay, so here is our air execution phase summary. And yeah, just as I thought, here was some recon that went out. So we had a total of 9 sorties. And it looks like we lost 2 aircraft. Actually, it looks like we lost. Okay. And then we had more recon, more recon. Yeah, so pretty much everything that flew was recon, which is fine. That's fine. We took more losses than I probably would have liked, but no issue learning a little bit more about the enemy, right? So now we are in our ground, or as it's referred to as move phase here. And we're going to do the same thing as last time, format-wise, right? We're going to start from the north of the map and just kind of work our way down. And we'll see where there's opportunities to press, but we are going to stick pretty adamantly to our current strategic objectives. And again, we're going to keep in mind that even if there's something that's kind of a 50-50, if it doesn't align to a strategic objective, because we have such poor conditions weather-wise, and we were pretty aggressive in turn 1, we're going to pull back just a little bit this turn. If you recall the turn summary and the order of battle changes that occurred between us, the Soviets, and the Axis, we see that the Axis, we see that we had more losses, and in some areas more meaningful, especially in air losses. And while we certainly have some advantages, we can't keep that up forever. So let's begin the ground movement phase. Right off the bat, I see that they've started to withdraw from a few spots. So we are going to take advantage of this right here, and we're going to move in to then take that crossroads. And it doesn't look like we're going to be able to bring that unit there, but this one we can move up. Excellent. We will leave that in the reserves. I don't see that they've necessarily weakened themselves anywhere. Over here, this did open up. I'm actually just a little hesitant to move there right now, but maybe we'll move this rifle brigade. They're well supplied. I think we will. Actually, we're not able to. Can't get there. And then here we have a rifle division and then a fort. Okay. So while they have a low defensive value here, we really don't have enough strength to break through. And then here we're dealing with 2 infantry divisions. Again, Leningrad fortress units and the 1st Rifle Corps. I don't think that's going to be enough to break through. No opportunities there. So we'll start to scan and move down here south. And remember, one of our 3 strategic objectives is we have Leningrad up here, and the Germans have committed, and this is historical, a lot of forces to try to keep Leningrad encircled and cut off. They tried to starve out the city, and the loss of human life in the situation there is just absolutely horrendous. But they committed a lot to this offensive. One of our 3 strategic objectives is to see where we have an opportunity in forces south here to cut east to west. And even if we cannot fully encircle their forces here, by doing so, and we saw this happen down in the southern pocket closer to the push for Moscow that they had, that puts enough pressure on them to actually get them to leave their defensive lines because of fear of being encircled. Right? So sometimes it's not necessarily making sure that you do encircle them, it's just the very act forces a reaction that then can benefit to us. And when we're looking at our path east to west, we have in total, going north to south, really kind of 5 lines of supply that can keep these units in supply, right? So as we move, the more we cut off, the more we hamper their supply chain. So the first unit that looks in any way weaker is right here. They have a defensive value of 9. That's an artillery unit. Don't know that we have enough strength to do much there. Let's look down here. Same thing. I'm not seeing that we have enough. what I am noticing is that on a lot of these units, our combat preparation points here are just so low, and our fatigue is actually a little higher than I would have expected. So going into this scenario, these units must have seen some action that has caused that. What I'm tempted to do is to actually maybe pull one of these units off the front line to try to help it recover its... So the mechanics of the combat preparation points, they help overall with the combat value of your unit when attacking and defending, and they're also just kind of a requirement to have to execute an attack sometimes. So ways to bolster it is to have it sitting on an HQ unit, change its status from, say, ready to refit, or even just pulling it off the front lines by 1 hex helps, because it's not then, from a game mechanic perspective, sitting there and managing a front line, right? The soldiers aren't sitting in foxholes at the ready to defend the line, so it helps them prepare a little bit, and it also, looking at these guys, it lowers their fatigue. So I think we are going to take one of these, and we're just going to pull it back. I'm going to pull it back here. No, we're going to pull back closer to the HQ. We're going to go right there. This just caught my eye that this airbase were actually has that red circle around it, and I'm going to have to look up what that is. I don't think it's because it's over capacity. I think it's where it says DET1 next to damage. I'll have to look up what that stands for. But anyways, we're letting the AI manage most of our air actions. I am a little tempted here. No. You also deplete your combat preparation points whenever you exhaust or bring too low your movement value, because that's kind of signifying, hey, if you move all the way to the ability of you to go to 0, it means you've really kind of pushed your men to the limit that turn, and that does not help them prepare for other initiatives. So we're going to leave that be, because I don't think we gain anything by stretching that border there, as they have this unit here that could then just counterattack. Down here we might have some type of opportunities. You see they've left this this open. Let's see the status of these units. So their fatigue is a little higher, but they're doing better than the units that were there to the north of them. You see that's going to take all the movement points we have. Boy, I just wonder if that'll be worth it. No. Those units are just, they look like they're so prepared. I don't think we're going to accomplish much by doing so. What I'm tempted to do, though, is now to say, okay, they're starting to pull out of this pocket. And this army, the 11th Army, was sitting here, and it was supporting kind of this northern perimeter. And with these 3 hexes of units, I actually think what we might do is pull them over, and then the 11th Army and the 27th Army, we will have them focus on pushing west here. And then we will have, let's see here. The 34th Army, there's the HQ. We'll have the 34th Army actually manage then the front right here. So the 34th Army is going to advance, and they'll manage this kind of 1-2 hex area. And then the 1st Shock Army is going to hold rather the positions that they have. As these German forces retreat back out, right? So we're not going to move all of these back now. And then the 53rd Army, we're actually going to keep the 53rd Army. What we're going to do with the 53rd Army? We're going to move the 53rd Army down here, which also then means we will have to take our maybe we won't. The Northwest Front HQ, we're probably going to be just fine if we keep it where it is. For now. For now. What's this unit doing over here? How did you end up there? Okay. We're going to start to bring them up here. I wonder if this is an opportunity to demonstrate. So there's multiple movement modes. There's also this rail mode. And I think we're going to leverage this. This is the Northwestern Front. And this is, yeah. Is this not attached to an HQ? Okay, so the AI actually assigned it to this army down here, which is fine. We're still going to use the rail movement phase though, and we're going to remove tiles here, or the chips, excuse me. Oh, that's a little less than ideal. So you actually receive a benefit when you unload in a city, so we're just going to move it here since there isn't one necessarily to use. So that's doing rail movement down south. Perfect. I think I have to do one more thing here. Nope, it's done. Is it? Looks like it is. Yep, it's just out of movement. That's why. Okay, so that's all sorted. Yes, so this army here, we want to build a new front right here. So we're going to do that. And to do so, we're going to move our HQ and Minor River. Yeah, so those are all light woods. I'm going to move them here. We're going to start pulling these men back. This is going to start to form a bit of a front here. Excellent. Okay. This also gives us a little bit of reassurance in case these German forces do decide to try to break east. I'm almost hopeful they will, because I feel we could pretty easily start to encircle them if they do. We see here that with the First Shock Army, the units are in such condition that I don't think we're going to be able to do much when we look at their supply levels. Right, look at that. So supplies do not sufficiently make it here to these units. I do think, though, we will... I think we might want to move and just take this one hex. No, because that... You see here this tear... Not teardrop, but it's kind of like a sweat icon, if you will, almost. It represents the fatigue level. And you see it getting worse by it adding this red border around it, meaning that we'd be in kind of a severe fatigue mode if we pushed our units this far to this level. So we're going to hold off there. And I think what we'll do is, so if we move this unit here, excellent. Then move them here. They can stay as is. We're also going to bring these guys down. They're out of movement points. And I'm just going to ever so slightly kind of reposition this particular HQ. Okay, very good. Again, I don't envision that they're going to try to break out here, because they're just going to be going through heavy woods, dense woods, and cutting themselves off. So there's not a concern, I don't think. We are going to bring the 11th Army east here. So I think we will bring this unit here. Bring the 170th down there. The 55th will go here. We're going to start building up, right, to try to eventually take on this 1st Infantry Division that exists there. I think we will plug this hole with this fresh unit. And here we're actually going to... Where is it worse? Yeah, 282nd Rifle Division is at half fatigue. So we're going to pull them back. We'll also take... I think those are all fine. That HQ unit's fine. That HQ unit's fine. Excellent. Okay. So making some good progress here, I feel. Yeah, just not even a consideration of possibly counterattacking here. These units we're going to hold because, again, they've already used a lot of their movement points, so we don't want to push them too far. Question is, do we maybe take Culm? I don't think so. It's probably a rather small town. It's just in a swamp. That's going to stay as is. We're not going to bother with that. Now, what do we do here? This is a bit of a dilemma. So, let's think about this. These two units are in trouble. If we leave them, the Germans will almost surely attack, and will attack with such numbers that they will likely lose. I just can't imagine, looking at all of this, that they would survive. When we look at what we lose, if we lose these units, or if they're heavily damaged, right? What do they have? 73 T4s. That's a pretty large number. 4 KV1s. I think we're going to leave them there. And the reason I say that is just this. This is going to have such an impact, I think. I'm, again, not an expert here. Would like to become close to one, but I think that the interruption of this rail line is going to have consequences to them. I really do. I do see, though, that it does have damage, a damage of 100. I wonder if, quite possibly, if we now withdraw, if the rail line is damaged and then it has the same consequences of us being there. I wish I knew more about that mechanic. So if we were to withdraw, how far could we get? Yeah, okay. We're going to stay in position, right? Because this rifle division, if we exhaust and push the men to their limit, we can only go to these two hexes. And it leaves us in the same position where they have such overwhelming force they can simply counterattack and hit us. So we might as well stay where we have this turn at least, a fighting chance. If they encircle the unit, then I'm going to be a little disappointed, because that will then probably allow them to have such a devastating blow that the units just shatter in these These units are gone then, including the 156 armor and the, my goodness, 450 guns and 22,000 men. It's so significant, but we're going to leave that as is. Down here, we are going to go ahead and take this crossroad. So we are going to move this unit up, and we will move this unit up. And they don't have quite as strong of an offensive position here, so I'm less worried about that here. And these units, I do wonder. I'm just going to move this unit up. Are these all part of the same HQ, the 3rd Shock Army? It looks like they are. Wow, so we have units all the way up here as part of the 3rd Shock Army. That's not good. So what we want to do is actually start to move these down. So we're going to move these closer to the HQ that they belong to. So we'll move them there. And then we also have this unit. We'll put them in the same hex. Okay. And then next turn we'll continue their path south. I think it kind of gives us a worst case scenario too of if these units break east and do encircle, we have more that are immediately ready, and perhaps it poses more of a concern to the Germans of watching their flanks if we do so. Going further down, these units are all in such bad supply that I don't want to risk doing anything with them. They're just going to stay in a holding situation. I know there are a couple of gaps here in the German line. We are not going to push on them because it will only consume supplies and add fatigue. What we will do though is look to see if maybe this rifle division can't move up to plug this hole, and we will stay in a defensive position there. These units, we may have an opportunity to actually counterattack this though. So let's see. Nope, that's 1-1. And in this turn, maybe last turn, but this turn, we're going to leave that be. Because again, we've kind of achieved the objective of, we've at least gotten them to withdraw, and we're going to end up cutting off 2 of their units, the 129th and the 78th Infantry Divisions, right? Last turn, we probably would have been more aggressive. Here, yeah, again, we don't have an advantage anywhere. It's close, but we won't do it. So now we start looking at where we do have opportunities to advance. And I think one is right here, this 114th Rifle Brigade. We're going to move this up. And we will also move up the 185th. Here we will move these 2 units up again to put pressure here on their flank. Is there much that can be done here? 33-12. Actually, on that note, what does it look like here? We're going to leave them. Our recon tells us that these units are in a good condition, a good state, and we're already on most of these units in a precarious supply level. So we're going to leave them be. We will move up this 155th Rifle Brigade, though. And then here we start to find ourselves right where we have more armies than we have room on the front. So I think what we will do is we will take the 39th Army, and we are actually going to reposition it over here to this front. And I think we will even try, we will do our best to have it actually come in and fill this hole. So we're going to have the 53rd Army here. We're going to condense the 3rd Shock Army down to here. And in between the 3rd Shock Army and the 53rd Army, I think we're going to move in the 39th Army. Yep. And then this again will all be part of our push west towards Riga. Okay. So let's move the HQ here first. Yeah, we're not in a rail line, so I wonder if we move here, can we take the rail line? Yep, so let's move that here. We're going to move the HQ. What do we have in this tile? Let's get that rifle corps out. This is part of the... Is this another unassigned unit? I think this is another unassigned unit. So we're going to move this unit here. Oh, shoot. That was... I had the wrong unit selected. Gosh darn it. Move that back. The rifle corps is what I want to move. We're going to move that here. And if I do this, is it going to just put it in the correct shock army? Let's see. It did. Okay, so that's part of the 3rd Shock Army now. Good news. Good news. And I think we will actually move this up here to help that front a little. Right. Now back to this topic. We have this now on a rail line. So now we're going to use the rail network to move it here to these other HQ units. Okay. Obviously, I know there's you don't want to be too far away from your HQ units. I'm hoping that does not impact our movement and repositioning of the entire force. The mechanized brigade now. We're going to move that to the rail line. And we're going to move that down here. We're going to take it off rail line. Oh, yeah, I think I have to unload the unit from the train. And 100 movement points, strategic movement points are required to do so. And I do not have that. So we have to unload it the next turn, I assume is what that means. Oh no. Oh no. Okay. Very well. I'll move these up, these up. Move that down as well. A bit of rinse and repeat here, right? Our first redeployment of an army. Okay. Keep doing this. So if I remember correctly from my readings, one of the great benefits of doing the rail movement is that it, I think it both, you see, we've moved all the way over here, but look at the fatigue level of these units. It's very minimal, right, compared to what you might expect. And also their combat preparation points are still pretty high. So moving by the rail, I certainly think is preferred. Move these up here. And then what we'll do next turn with all of these is we will unload them and then establish this front. This one I think just ran out of movement, so that's going to have to stay behind for a brief while. Guess we could... We're going to leave it at there. We'll leave it right there. Okay. Now, let's encircle some units, huh? So we're going to take the 380 Rifle Division, move it here. Then we're going to take this unit, bring it up here. And bring that here. I don't know that we have any that are going to have enough movement points to actually get behind them, though. We can take one of these units, I suppose. It starts to separate a little from the HQ, though. Do I not have any armor up here? Or any mechanized units? It doesn't look like I do. Okay. We're going to have to take one of these then. So we'll do the 8th Guard. That is a very sizable force, and I don't think they're going to have any chance of getting past that. I saw a message pop up, but I missed what it said. I do hope it's not terribly important. And let's also look at that unit we actually moved to bring back up to the front. It has no movement points, but we can take a look at adding this unit here. Okay. And then we have the 31st Army. And then we have, is this the 20th Army? And the 29th Army. So again, we have more armies than will fit this ultimate front line that we're going to have built here. But I think with these we will move south with them. So we're going to move this 20th Army HQ down here. Start move these units of the 20th Army and start build a bit of a front line here. Excellent. So let's actually see, right? What can we do here? Let's see if we can't crush this unit. They retreat it. Oh no. Oh no, guys. Oh my goodness. Look what I've done. I did not turn off our ground support. Wow. Let's go back to that. 74. That was horrible. So we're going to now toggle ground support off, as I should have done from the get-go. Oh my. Move some of these units up. We're now getting into a different army here. 3rd Artillery Division we will put here. Okay. So there's that army. We're doing this. Let's first try to encircle this unit. So let's do that first. So what we're going to do is 144th is going to go here. 29th is going to go here. The 19th is going to go right there. And then let's actually see. This rifle division is just assigned to the Western Front, but what we're going to do is we're going to add it to, what army is this? The 5th Army. So if we do this auto assign, it should go to the 5th Army. Yep, went to the 5th Army. So now, this is good. This is good. So now the 5th Army has the 129th Infantry Division completely encircled. Good. I almost missed the 6th Tank Corps. How could I? Let's get aggressive. Let's push here. Oh, can I not? Combat delay, it looks like. Same thing there. Okay, very well. So, 31st Army. What are we going to do with the 31st Army? When you have an extra army to spend, where do you spend it, right? I am tempted, I will be honest with all of you, I am tempted to add it here to our push towards Riga. So now that this pocket is collapsing, right, we should just kind of do a review of what our strategic objectives were. It was to try to cut off this pocket if possible. It was to move from east to west towards the Baltic, Riga, or other areas, to then cut off the advance towards Leningrad. And it was to encircle Stalingrad and then push southwest towards Rostov, towards Odessa, to then eliminate the forces from the Crimea, Sevastopol, the Caucasus, etc., by trying to force and cut off their lines of supply. This objective, I think, right now, is in a couple of turns going to become irrelevant, because I think this is going to naturally fold back, and what we'll find ourselves with is a situation where we just have this front line north of Smolensk, and it will turn into a battle for Smolensk. And while it is an important crossroads supply-wise, I don't know that it's large enough to be some strategic objective of ours. So we are going to take the 31st Army, and we're also going to contribute it to our advance towards the Baltic Sea over here. And we will finish building our front line using the 33rd Army 49th Army, the forces that are already on the front line. And then remember, we also have an additional 2 armies, the 5th Army and the 30th Army, that when they're done with these encirclements, they can be added to that front line. So I think the short story is we have too many forces that are going to be pushing towards Smolensk. So we're going to reposition. So we're going to reposition the 31st Army here, and we moved the 39th Army to cover this gap in between the 3rd Shock Army and the 53rd Army. I think what we will do now is take the 31st Army and position it in between these two. So position it between the 1st Shock and the 53rd Army. Okay, good stuff. So we are already on a rail line. So let's then move here to Penno. Let's do that. I really am going to have to look if this is something where it has a consequence mid-turn by being so far away. I know we're not attacking anyone or anything like that, but now do we have enough? We do not have enough points to disembark. So we're going to have to just hold there. Okay, very well. We'll continue moving all of these units, though. So that can also go to Penno. Do we have another unassigned unit here? We may. I wonder if I can... No, it was just selected. That's why I had to change that color. I do wonder if I can't speed up in the preference settings how fast it moves on the hexes like this. I'm sure I can. It's just something I'll have to find. Oh, well, that's a little curious. It took a different route. Okay. And this army, we might have to wait a turn or two, right? Not only to unload them from the train, but I think probably it'll be 2 or 3 turns until they're on the front line and have recovered enough preparation and from fatigue of being able to advance. Now, what I'm also looking at here, if you'll humor me for a moment, is this is all swamp. All of it. I do wonder if the swamp map terrain is a little more manageable in the winter, which we're in/quickly approaching. I think we will stay the course here with this strategy, though. Worst case is we put more and more pressure either north or south to try to go around those swamp tiles. So this is taking a while just for all of this to move, guys, but I think very well worth it. Oh. And this one we really don't have enough, so we're only going to be able to make it up to there. These we have to move to the rail line. So we'll move them here. Okay. This is taking a while to move an entire army, but when you think about really what is involved with moving, say, 100,000 men, if not more, and all of their equipment and supplies, doing it in 2 to 3 weeks' time, right? Remember, one turn is 1 week. It's really not as surprising when you think about it that way. Now, another thing to consider when you're using rail, and I hope that I don't have a misunderstanding of impact, right? I know that this is a mechanic, but I have not played around with nor understand the math enough to fully comprehend. When you move these units like we are right now via rail, if you think about this logically, those are trains on the railway that are doing things other than moving trains full of supplies, right? So having all of these on this rail line, I am expecting will have a consequence to our line of supply and rate of supply. And if I were more visionary and insightful with this, I probably would have sat here and said, you dummy, wait one turn, take these 2 tiles, and then the train line goes straight across there. I'm a nincompoop. I don't know why you guys didn't point that out to me, but I should have seen that. So here we have another army, and this is the 29th. The 29th army we're going to move down and start to fill out a bit of a frontier. So, see, I got spoiled by ranges using a rail line. Don't know how much progress we're going to be able to make. We're just going to start moving all of these units south. This is really going to add fatigue to these units, but we got to get them down here. Move that there. Okay. And then we have the 33rd Army, and this is going to start a pivot this way. Yep, so we'll start moving all of these down. Good, good, good. I think we will go a little aggressive there. Move this straight across. This is our 33rd Army headquarter unit, which actually is out of all movement. And these are all part of the 33rd Army, but they do not have any movement. Okay, very well. Can we... Nope, not going to be able to. And now we have the 49th Army, which will come in right here. It's going to start building out this front line, right? Move that unit. Now we have our 50th Army. And I think what we'll do is we'll start actually trying to push here a little. What has happened? I turned off the ground support. Why did that happen? So each lost 200 men. I had horrible air losses. They did not. And they're all air to air. This is so confusing to me right now. Let's see. Go back here. Where is it, the 15th Air Army? I don't know that we can see the details here. I'm curious if there's a number of air mechanics in the game, and I'm wondering if what is happening is not that they're trying to do ground support, but rather they're if the enemy is trying to do ground support, the AI may trigger kind of an auto response if you have it being managed right, where it tries to counter the air units that are being sent against you. And I wonder if that's what's happening there. Just to make sure that we're not losing 60 planes every time we engage in combat, I may have to cut back on combat until I figure that out. I'm going to move this unit down. And then let's see if we can push here. 28. Or another alternative is just keep attacking until we have no more airframes left. But that doesn't sound like as much fun long term. So here, what did we lose for armored fighting vehicles? Oof. That's not that great. Took pretty heavy losses. Back to the movement mode. I don't think we're going to advance with any of those units. They can't go. Alright, we are going to go with the 1st Guards Cavalry Corps. But then this unit, oh my gosh, next turn we have to be careful not to do too much because that fatigue is getting really high and they have no combat preparation left after that. We're just going to leave those off the front. And now let's see if we can take this. No, we don't have good enough odds, so we're going to leave that be. So we have the 10th Army and we have the 50th Army. And the 10th Army is going to kind of stay right here. We don't want to advance too far here. And the 16th Army, I don't think we have enough forces to really make a meaningful push anywhere along that line. So we're going to move on down. Here we even have a unit with a supply concern, so we won't get aggressive there. Boy, I would really like to capture Orel, though. I think we tried something here last turn, if I remember correctly. Let's see, what does it look like if we go there? That's even odds. And that one's fighting across a river, so that's not ideal. So let's do this. No, even that's barely 2 to 1. Not worth it. It's not worth it. So we're going to hold the line. That's what we're going to do. We're just going to hold the line here. Oh, did they pull out of Vornez? Vornez? I'm certainly butchering that. My apologies to anyone offended by it. Yeah, I think they did. So we're going to move in. All right. I think we might move this unit up here. Okay. So this is the 38th Army. And I'm going to add this to the 38th Army, I think. do I want to add it to the 60th Army? I'm going to add it to the 60th Army because I think they can do more good down here. We're going to move you here. And we're going to auto-assign it. It should go to the 60th Army. Good. So this is crossing a river, which is why it's taking so much. So we're going to take these. We're going to attack here. Oh no, this just isn't good. We're going to move this reserve unit here. Okay. And we're trying to decide if we should cross the river or not. The river is just such a nice defensive position. I don't want to do it in too many areas. And I have a feeling like these may be withdrawals just to try to get us to leave the defensive position on the other side of the river, counterattack, weaken us, and then push. But maybe that's being a little paranoid for fighting a World War II strategic simulator AI. Do we maybe make a push here? This is such a strong unit that I almost hate to use it just to take this empty terrain with no strategic importance. And this unit is part of the 1st Guards Army, which is there. I don't know. You know, first what we're going to do is we're going to figure out Stalingrad, then we're going to come back here to this flank. First we're going to do Stalingrad. So let's begin by building a bit of a defensive perimeter. So what do we have here? Here's the 57th Army, okay? And their units here and here, and this is also tied to the 57th Army. So let's use the 57th Army to start building a bit of a line here of defense. Right. So I'm going to take these key spots. Boy, this gets a little tricky moving an HQ unit here to do this encirclement. Almost debated to sit it on top of that unit, but I think I'm going to put them right here. Alright. And then we have the 36th Guard. And I think what we're going to do is use the 36th Guard to deploy like this. But actually, this is the 64th Army, which is different. What I really want to do is capture that air base, to be honest with you. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to pull this unit back. We're going to start building out a line. The 64th Army HQ is going to move down here to try to be a little closer to their men. And then here, the 51st Army, I'm actually going to pull this back and we are going to hold the 51st Army here along this river. That's what we're going to do. So this is going to kind of be the edge here. And none of these units have any movement points, so they're just going to stay as is. These are arid steppes. All right then. So there's a potential right where there's a gap between our two lines here. There's absolutely no strategic reason for them to allocate resources against that. What is a concern is if they pushed all the way here to take this rail line, which would then cut off my forces in the south. That would be quite bad. But I just don't envision that happening right now. What we may do is we may stretch the 44th Army to try to cover a little further north here, just to be ready if they do. Or do we have anything down here maybe that would be of use for that? So you belong to the Trans-Caucasus Front. You're not currently attached to any of the armies. I'm thinking I'm going to move these units up here. I am. Because that's cavalry. This might be completely illogical and something the AI would never do, but just in case they try it, I want to at least have forces in the area that would be able to respond to that threat. Back to Stalingrad. Okay, so on the east we have built out kind of what our defensive line is going to be. This is not terribly strong, and given 2 turns, I think they could do serious trouble with counterattacking. But now let's build out on the western side what this front looks like. So I think what we're going to do is take the 21st Army and try to create a defensive line with them. So we're going to move the 96th Rifle down. We're going to move this unit here, this unit here. Alright, so we have now established a defensive line. I'm going to move this here actually. I think we have 2 more that we can probably move down south here. Trying to just establish a defensive line on both the east and the west fronts. Yes. We're going to move. I'm going to move this down here too. Okay. Oh, that's an artillery division. We don't want that there. No, well, it's fine if it's there, but we don't want it there alone, I guess is the better way to say it. So let's do this. Move him here, and let's see if he can't knock out that unit. That's going to drive me insane not knowing the reason for that. Okay. Now we have the 65th Army. Let's start to push. Beginning of the encirclement. All right, they retreated. It's not quite good enough odds here. Okay. let's take a look over here and see what can be done to try to collapse this side. That's not so great. We'll give it a try. They held. Okay. What is going on? That is just incredible. Now, what's interesting, though, is, like I said, these are all air-to-air losses, and I do think that this is an air superiority kind of trigger for why it's launching these fighters, is it's trying to intercept their air units, because this is, historically, and I shouldn't make this generalization, but in 1942, the German Air Forces and their fighters did have a number of advantages and did have some pretty overwhelming wins with the 109s. And I think this is probably reflective of that. But for the first time, we kind of see, wow, you know, they really lost a lot too. So they lost 19 of their fighter bombers here. So, okay. So they held, though. So that's unfortunate. I don't think there's much we can do up here. The combat preparation points on all of these are just so low. That's really hurting then their combat value. And I don't think we want to... What do we have there? One motorized division. What if we go like this? Nope, it's just not enough. And that's fine. We can wait on that. What I am going to do is take these units... thought I might be able to, but perhaps I can't. I was thinking to take these units down south here to push in. It does not look like I have enough movement to do so. Okay. So I'm just going to pull them back to here. Fact is, straight attack here, unlikely. Ability to push here on the side with more men next turn, that's going to fare much better. Over here we have this rifle division, which can, of course, be brought up. And we're going to bring it down here to the south. And we're going to attach it then to the 64th Army. Okay. What else do we have over here? Ooh, 24th Army Tank Corps. Where have you been? What can you do for me? That gets so far from the front line, though. So we're going to move here. We're going to do a deliberate attack. Nope. Combat delay, I think. Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. But I can start moving this unit over. So we will do so. Up here we have the 61st Rifle Division, excuse me. And we're going to move that down. And of course we have some toys that we have yet to play with. I'm going to move this armor here. And we're going to attack. We captured their air base depot. What do you know? I like how that's going. Okay. And what we're going to do is we're going to take this 5th Tank Army and we're going to move this in behind. Fifth Tank Army. where possible, right? We don't want to exhaust all of the movement. We'll move that one there. Move that cavalry corps up here. More HQ units. Interesting. Can you get up there and can you support those perhaps? Let's see. Boy, you know, let's give it a try. Nope, combat delay. We're not going to. That was a little disappointing. 5th Tank Corps, we're going to continue moving up where we can, and then we'll move the HQ down as well. Right, so now we're back within supply and command range, etc., of our 5th Tank Army. And then we're going to take the southwestern front. We're going to relocate our HQ unit just a little more this way. We're going to start building out this front line here. Right. So this is kind of the forces in between. Don't think I need that much, so we're maybe I do. Let's attack that. They retreated. Ooh, 1,000 men. Oh, we're back to fighting some Romanian forces. Okay. Okay. This unit will go here. I did not think about this all the way through. That's okay. Let's see if we can't. No. Move this here. And then here we're going to move up this first guard. There we go. This is working nicely. This is working nicely. Boy, crossing that river sure does make that tough, doesn't it? We can attack the 31st Infantry Division, perhaps, with our forces. Let's do that. Nope. We have another combat delay. Okay. Okay. This has gone very well. I feel pretty good in the kind of front that we've started to establish here. The real question is going to be at the end of the turn, how aggressive did the Germans get in pressing against this front? We are coming up pretty close to time for the episode, so we're going to move south to the Caucasus regions, and we're just going to do some simple things here. We're going to start moving some of these forces up where we can and start to take back some of this territory. Move that here. We'll move this unit there. The 11th Rifle Corps we need to attach here to a army. Okay, much better. Move that up, take that city. Might have to expend the movement here, but I really want to get someone there in that airfield. We're going to do the same thing here. Going to be just a little more aggressive. The terrain plays quite an impact down here in terms of movement. 218th Rifle Division. Move up here. Just a lot of movement, right, to try to advance the front line a little. Need to assign that to a HQ. Same thing here. them up. Alright, this is going quite well. These all have 0 movement. We can move up there. We're going to cross the river here with this unit. And then we're going to attach them to an HQ because they're not part of one here. Okay, okay. Oh, we have some here that can move too. Alright. Going to start crossing the mountains. I should say crossing the mountains, really. We're kind of leaving them, if anything. Alright. Look at this progress we are making. So we're going to start pushing this front up. These units I'm actually going to leave because they're not very prepared. We have no combat preparation points here at all. So we're going to leave them be. But I do wonder if perhaps I take this rifle. Yeah, I'm going to take this port here. Oh, we got a flak battalion to surrender. That sounds like a win. That does sound like a win. We're just going to I'm going to just leave them there to build up combat prep. But we've now at least taken that port. Should help a little with supply. My understanding is correct with that. And alright, I think that's going to end our ground movement phase, which will then end turn 2. We redeployed about 5 or 6 armies to new locations on the front over here, all as part of our organization efforts to eventually push west to Riga. We no longer necessarily are trying to cut off north of Smolensk the supply lines moving up towards this pocket of German forces as they are collapsing. So we're simply re-establishing a front and pressing where we can. We've surrounded 2 German divisions defending towns there. From Orel to Reznev, we've stayed pretty much static on the front lines. We don't have any key advantages. Stalingrad, we've established a defensive perimeter in the rear of our pocket, preventing likely the German forces from being able to break through and resupply Stalingrad. And then in the south, we have had some progress moving up units from east to west, north of the Caucasus. And again, we're going to stay very static down here. That is the plan. We're not going to expend a lot of resources or units trying to get big fights down here. So with that, we're going to hit end turn, and this is going to go through and it's going to start, again, paranoia, I can't remember if I already clicked that. So we're going to allow them to manage the AI depots. Okay, we're going to hit end turn, and it's going to go through and start calculating the various turns for the Germans after we get done with some resupplies. Right now is what's happening, is we are sending air units to resupply our ground units. So I gotta say, everyone, I've been having a lot of fun with this game so far. Like I mentioned in episode 1, I've always been a fan of the Gary Grigsby kind of genre of games, the level of detail that they present, but it's always been a little tough to get into them. And I like this approach that I've taken, and I hope you can follow something similar if it suits you, of just doing a little bit of research, but hopping into the game and just building up turn after turn, adding new features to what you're doing. And I would certainly say, too, that the 2 tutorial or introductory scenarios that they suggest for War in the East 2, Vele Lucayo and a second one whose name I forget, do help because it's just a smaller scale. Right? You're not focused on all the things that you have to do across an entire Eastern Front. But this has been a good experience, I think, to learn the game. And next episode, right, turn 3, we're going to continue introducing some new mechanics. The big one for us at the beginning of this episode was the theater boxes and their role. And we're just going to continue building on that. And the scenario can go for 135 some odd turns. So we have plenty of turns to introduce a new feature each episode. I might have to start splitting some of the turns up as we add features, because we have gone a little too long on this episode in terms of time. I'd like to keep these closer to an hour, and we've gone well over that on this particular recording. So we're going to have to keep it a little shorter in future episodes. The air planning is now happening for the German forces, and it's really their turn that they're going through their steps. They've finished up the logistics phase. And let's see how many sorties they're running and what some of the results of the combat are here. Okay, so trends very similar to what we had due to the weather likely. 150 sorties that they've run. They've only suffered 4 losses. We're about 1/3 through the air planning phase. So it looks like they're going to be kind of restrained in the air war this turn as well. What I'm dreading us looking at is when we finish simulating here the actions of the AI, is to see that end of turn summary and to see just how many airframes we lost last turn. We had some horrible engagements, and I have this nagging fear that we're going to get to turn 10 and I'm going to sit here explaining to everyone how we suddenly find ourselves with 0 airframes available because they've all been exhausted due to various missteps. But we're now on the ground phase, so you can see here it's simulating their ground movements. It sounds like they're moving some units, but we haven't yet gotten to the counterattack phase where they might engage in some battles. So let's see what happens here. Alright, so these are resupplies that they're running right now, air resupplies. Looks like they've been pretty successful so far. We're actually trying to intercept some of them there. You see that we're losing airframes, we're losing fighters trying to intercept their air resupplies. We're losing more fighters than they're losing transport aircraft, so I think that really speaks to some of the dominance that the German air units had during this time. And that might be something that we dive into. I don't know if we'll plan it for episode 5 or 6, but I think we'll start to take more of a deep dive into the air war and different levers that we can pull to try to... I don't think we're going to just flip a switch and suddenly be beating the Germans in the air every battle, but maybe there's some tips that we can pick up there. So our defending forces held here. It looks like it was an attack up in that pocket. They're attacking again, and we held them again at 105 range, so that's pretty good. My goodness, they're attacking again. It looks like it's around this Rezev city. I wonder if they're trying to... I think the 78th Infantry Division was one of the units that we'd encircled. Wow, so we've actually lost one of these battles, so we're going to have to take a look to see what happened there. Defending forces held. I think they're trying to break out one of those units. So certainly the most action that I think we've seen from the German forces on the ground so far. Oh, and up in Leningrad. Okay, defending forces held. Same thing again. Are they actually trying to assault Leningrad? I think that might be what's happening here. Oh no, we're surrounded. We surrendered and we are routed. Uh-oh. We might need to put a little more focus up in the Leningrad front at the beginning of next turn based off of that. Yes, and here's where our 3rd Shock Army right there. They went a little too far and they explored towards the 8th Panzer. And they're starting to do some counterattacks here. And we're retreating, actually. So we've lost 4 or 5 battles here, which is new so far to the series. We held there. That's good. I'm excited about this. This is going to give us a lot of battles to review to see what they did. We lost that fight. Wow, we took 4-1 losses in infantrymen there. We held there. I mean, this, it looks like this is kind of our front line that we were establishing here with our units, and our 16th Corps retreated. All right. So it looks like what's happened is they kind of they pulled back to try to get us into a position where we tried to form a new line, and they found some weak points while we were setting all of that up. So this was smart of them, right? It wasn't a complete withdrawal of their forces. They've been tactical about this, and they've gotten some wins from it, from the looks of it. Oh, and I can see here on the map what actually happened is they broke through that pocket. Right there. Okay. They broke through here as well. So we're going to have a lot to look at by the time this is all said and done. It doesn't look like they did anything down by Stalingrad, though. So I think if you were to very roughly size it up, you'd say you probably had some German wins in the north of the map. But in the south of the map, I still think we have a bit of an overwhelming situation there, in victory soon to be with the Stalingrad forces. And it's just wrapping up 99%, and then their turn will be over. Okay, doing some more air transport here before it all finishes. That's fine. And now it is our turn, the Soviets' turn, and we begin, of course, with just the logistics phase, where it's calculating out things that were produced, rail capacities, any type of repairs that need to happen to our infrastructure, etc. So that's what's being calculated right now. And look at this, turn 3 brings us to December 3rd. So we're getting pretty late in the calendar year here, and that infamous winter is setting in. Just 70% through the logistics phase. Almost done here. We have a lot of units to supply, it looks like. And doing a quick save of things. All right, turn summary. We're going to go over this real quick to kind of wrap it up, and then we'll do a bit of a review of it again at the beginning of the next episode. So friendly losses, we've lost 54,000 men. That's pretty close to what we had in the previous turn. 741 guns, 263 armored fighting vehicles. That's up from the previous turn. This is what I was worried about, guys. Lost 1,150 airframes. Total net order of battle changes is on the map. We ended up with a positive 20,000 men because of likely reinforcements and such, as well as the losses. It comes out to a net 20,000 positive. Lost a total of 1,600 guns. Lost 4 armored fighting vehicles net, so it looks like we probably had a pretty high production level. And honestly, if we can keep, I don't want to be at 0 every turn, but we don't have to have these huge increases every turn in terms of things like armored fighting vehicles, right? Because we're getting to the point where that Soviet industry is going to just start outproducing the German capacity as Germany has more and more competing demands. Here you see the airframes. What an awful number. The only solace that I'll take in it is that the Germans did lose almost 200 as well. And certainly we outnumber them in airframes available, so at the very least we took a number down with us. They actually brought in a net positive 200 armored fighting vehicles, though, which is a little concerning. I think it looks like our supply situation improved a little. We only have 45 with low supply. I think that was 75 or so last turn. 50 under strength, 7 unready, 7 isolated. So I'm wondering if the isolated were part of the counterattacks that they had going on here. so we're going to close out of that, and then we're going to look at our new events, and we're just going to real quick go through these since they're all pertinent to this turn. So it looks like there are RAF raids, and this is ultimately kind of, again, that home front for Germany. It's starting to damage their infrastructure, starting to have an impact to their manpower. There was an Axis setback in the Balkans, and this is probably because of their distribution to the theater boxes of various units, so they lose 1 victory point and 1 AP. Garrison shortage in Western Europe, similar situation there. There are more Soviet partisans in German-occupied Soviet Union territories. It looks like there's also Urel partisans in the Urel region. Okay. And then first chain reaction. So it looks like this is an event update to the development of atomic weapons. And that wraps up our news events. So just want to thank you guys for taking a watch and a listen to episode 3 of the Let's Play series. It has been an absolute blast going through this, playing the game, and learning more of the mechanics. Any comments, questions, suggestions that you have, please leave them below. And as always, a like and subscribe are very helpful to getting these videos out there to more and more folks who may be interested in trying this game and may feel like it's a little daunting right now, and maybe we can offer some encouragement of how you can get into it easily enough. So this is First Contact Gamer signing off. Thank you all for watching, and have yourselves a great day.